Now that you start dabbling a little bit in making games, you can control objects on the screen. You may be interested in putting images in place of those shapes, because as an image, you can have a lot more control of fine detail. We're going to look at putting two different kinds of images into our games. The first we're going to look at is putting in a sprite or an avatar for the player. And a sprite is a term that was used in the early days of video games to represent anything that was drawn to the screen that would be in motion. And it's to give you the idea of like sprites from mythology. So we're going to put a sprite on the screen, and one of the things about when you put characters on the screen like this is that we want to make sure we maintain a transparency on them. Therefore, they're going to be an invisible part of the image. If you've ever used an image modeling program, you'll know that all images are square, and even though there might be transparent bits about them, that bit is still drawn if the transparency is not kept. So for our character images, I'm going to recommend that we use the PNG data type. You can also use the GIF data type, GIF. But I personally recommend the PNG data file because it gives you a better trade-off between resolution, but also allows you to create that transparency. And the other type of image that we'll look at is a background image. And for the background image, there typically won't be transparency in there because it's going to cover our whole screen. And in the case of this one, we're going to be looking at a JPEG file that we're going to load into our program as our background. So to begin with, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the program that we've done before, which is a keyboard control program. And this is our keyboard control program where you can control a circle on the screen. So what I want to do is, instead of the circle, we're going to load a spaceship. Okay, so I want to show you the code that I'm going to use for this. Also, I want to share with you that I have this image that I've created. Let me see, I want to open it up in Paint. There we go. Okay, so there's my image in Paint that I've created. Okay. And that's the image that we're going to use. Now, when you create these images, you want to make sure that they are in the same folder as your Python file. Now, if you want them in a different directory, you just have to make sure that when you load it, that you give it a complete path to that. And I recommend that you look in the PyGame documentation to do that correctly. I personally prefer to put all my images where the code is to avoid any confusion. So this is the code that we're going to use to load the ship. So the first line is the ship equals pygame.image.load, and then I'm going to give it the name of the file, and this time I've called it ship.png, and note that's in double quotes. And you'll note that at the end I have this thing that says convert alpha. If you read the Pygame documentation, they suggest that you do this conversion, and they suggest that by doing the conversion, it will make your images load faster and work faster. I anecdotally don't know if this is true or not, but I'm going to trust their word on it. Then the second piece is to actually draw it to the screen is a command called screen.blit. The first piece of information that goes into screen.blit is the image that we want to draw, and then the second piece of information it wants is the XY location to draw that. And we're just going to use the rectangle that we're storing the player in, so we will keep that from our game. So the very first thing, and I'm actually going to copy and paste this because I don't want to type it. So I'm going to come over here and load that right underneath my player. So I have my ship equals pygame.image.load with ship.png as my file, and then we're going to convert the alpha. And then we'll come down here where we drew the circle, and I'm going to blit that ship to the screen at the player's location. Okay, and I'm going to save and run it, and you'll see that the ship draws on top of the circle now, and when I move the keyboard controls, the ship moves with it. That's pretty cool. So now let's get that background on there. Okay, now for the background, it's going to be pretty much the same code. Let me go ahead and show it to you. The main difference is, well, first of all, it's a different file name. So it's space.jpg. Instead of convert alpha, it's just convert. The alpha is the part that gives you the transparency. And again, the background, we don't want the transparency. The other thing about this image is the image I'm using is enormously large. It's an image that I downloaded from the NASA website. And just so you know, images created by the federal government are automatically public domain, which is probably why there are so many space-based games out there that use real Hubble telescope images. I'll put a link in the description box of where I download this image. In fact, let me show the image that we're going to be using. That's it right there. And again, this image is pretty enormous. It's let's just say it's really big. And it's way bigger than the 640 by 40. So the second piece here is to transform, scale that image, and we're going to scale it to 640 by 480. And also this will need to be blitted. So again, I'm going to take this right here. Okay, and let's go ahead and I want to go up to the top and put it here. Do try to keep all your variable declarations close together so that when you're looking to debug something, it'll be easier to find it. So here we have the back equals pygame.image.load space, and then again convert without the alpha, and then we're going to transform it, pygame.transform.scale, and we're scaling this background image to 640 by 40. So I'm going to shrink it down to the size of the screen, and it's actually going to look a little awkward. Probably should have chosen an image that was in the correct ratio, but you'll see what I'm talking about here in a moment. Alright, now when I draw the background, the order is going to matter. I'm going to use the circle I have here with the ship to demonstrate this. So the first thing we do is draw the circle, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to blit our background, and I'm going to blit it at 0, 0, that's the top left corner, and then I'm going to blit the ship. So what should happen is it does draw the green circle, and it's going to draw the background on top of the circle and the ship on top of the background. If I move the background after the ship, we won't ever see the ship. And that's going to be demonstrated by the fact we won't see the green circle anymore. Okay, so you see the green circle is gone. So yeah, and at this point you should actually get rid of drawing the green circle because it's just wasting CPU time drawing it right before it draws the background, because the background is covering it up. But anyways, this should give you some ideas, some cool things you can do. I mean, look at this. We're pretty much right on the way of an alien invasion game where you can have aliens coming down at you and you can start shooting them. And in a future episode, we're going to look at how to actually do projectiles and how to destroy things coming down on the screen. So let this spark your imagination. Remember, have fun, enjoy, and make some great games.